Ojibwe Anishinaabe, a complete deep dive. The people of the Great Lakes, dream catchers, the Midewiwin, the seven grandfather teachings, and the Birchbark tradition. Gitche Manitou, the Great Spirit, is not a being above the world. It is the sacred quality that permeates all things. Asibikaashi, the Spider Woman, could not reach all the children as the Anishinaabe spread across the Great Lakes. So the grandmothers wove webs above the cradleboards. Bad dreams catch in the web. Good dreams slide down the feathers to the sleeping child. Personal reading series Haligricity, June 2026. IQ Productions. Contents. A note on sacred knowledge and tribal sovereignty. Introduction. The Anishinaabe, people of the Great Lakes. Part 1. Who the Ojibwe Anishinaabe are. Identity, territory, and 7 nations. Part 2. The Ojibwe language. Anishinaabe. Part 3. The creation narrative. Turtle Island and the Earth Diver. Part 4. Gitche Manitou, the Great Mystery. Part 5. The Manitou, the Spirit World. Part 6. The 7 Grandfather Teachings complete. Part 7. The Clan System, foundation of sacred identity. Part 7. Their sacred roles. Part 9. The Midewiwin, the Grand Medicine Society. Part 10. Midewiwin ceremony structure, step by step. Part 11. The Vision Quest, seeking the guardian spirit. Part 12. The Vision Quest, step by step. Part 13. Asibikaashi and the Spider Woman. Part 14. The Dreamcatcher, complete tradition and true history. Part 15. The Dreamcatcher's spread, the Pan-Indian movement. Part 16. Sweat Lodge. Part 17. Step by step. Part 18. The Powwow, sacred community gathering. Tobacco, cedar, sweetgrass, sage, birchbark, the north. Part 21. Protectors of the Great Lakes. Protectors of the Great Lakes. People of the Great Lakes. People of the Great Lakes. The Ojibwe are one of the largest indigenous nations in North America, with a contemporary population of approximately 160,000 in Canada. They are the people of the Great Lakes. Their traditional territory spans the Great Lakes Basin from Ontario and Manitoba in Canada, through Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and into Montana, North Dakota in the United States. This vast territory, organized around the specific ecology of the Great Lakes and their surrounding forests, shaped every aspect of Ojibwe sacred tradition. The Anishinaabe are the source of the word, totem. The tradition of the Dreamcatcher, the 7 Grandfather Teachings, and the Midewiwin. Gitche Manitou, the Great Mystery. Gitche Manitou is the supreme sacred principle in Ojibwe cosmology, not a personal god who exists above and separate from creation, but the sacred quality, the mysterious power, that animates and pervades all of existence. The Ojibwe philosopher and writer Basil Johnston describes Manitou as mystery, essence, and substance of life and being. Gitche Manitou, in the Haligrich framework. Manitou is pervasive sacred presence. Every rock, every river, every animal, every plant, every person carries Manitou, the mysterious sacred quality that makes a thing what it is, rather than merely what it appears to be. The Ojibwe do not distinguish between animate and inanimate in the way Western metaphysics does. Rocks are animate, rivers are animate, thunderstorms are animate. In the specific sense that they carry Manitou, they have spirit, they are capable of relationship. Manitou, the spirit beings, alongside the pervasive Gitche Manitou. The Ojibwe recognize a vast population of specific spirit beings who govern specific domains of existence: Anamikig, Mishibiji, Memegwezi, Windigu, and many others. The Thunderbirds, one of the most powerful categories of Manitou, the great birds of thunder who carry lightning and whose battles with the underwater panther maintain the balance between sky and water that makes the world habitable. The Thunderbirds are understood as genuinely present in thunderstorms, not as metaphors for the electrical activity, but as the actual beings whose movement across the sky produces the specific experience of the storm. The 7 Grandfather Teachings, the complete ethical framework. The 7 Grandfather Teachings are the foundational ethical principles of the Anishinaabe moral and spiritual framework. 7 specific qualities that the Creator identified as essential for right living and right relationship, transmitted through the figure of the 7 grandfathers who gave these teachings to the first people through a specific sacred narrative. They have become one of the most widely adopted indigenous ethical frameworks in North America, taught in indigenous education programs, incorporated into community governance, and recognized in Canadian government statements on indigenous relationships. The 7 Grandfather Teachings complete. Mbiwakawin. To cherish knowledge is to know wisdom. Knowledge is used for the good of the people. Wisdom comes from experience and reflection combined, not from knowledge alone, and not from experience alone. The elder's wisdom is the specific form it takes when knowledge and experience have had decades to find their relationship. Zagiyidawin. Love. To know love is to know peace. Love must be unconditional. When you begin to place conditions on love, it ceases to be love and becomes something else. Love is not merely a feeling, it is a practice and a choice, renewed moment by moment. Minedandamwin. Respect. To honor all creation is to have respect. Everything that exists has its own spirit, its own sacred character, its own right to exist. Respect does not require that you agree with something or find it pleasant, it requires that you acknowledge its sacred existence. Akojuan. Bravery. Bravery is to face the foe with integrity. The teaching specifically names the foe within, the inner obstacles that prevent right living, as the primary test of bravery. External courage is secondary to the bravery required to live honestly. Gwayakwadizziwan. Honesty. Honesty in facing a situation is to be brave. Honesty requires the specific courage to see and name what is actually true, rather than what is comfortable or what is expected. Gwayakwadizziwan also implies a specific relationship with one's own character, to be genuinely who you are rather than performing a version of yourself. Dabadendiziwin. Humility. Humility is to know yourself as a sacred part of creation. Not self-abasement or the performance of smallness, but the specific recognition that you are one sacred being among many sacred beings, that your perspective is one perspective among many valid perspectives, and that the creation around you is not background to your story, but the story itself. Truth is to know all of these things. Truth is the integration of all 7 teachings, the condition in which wisdom, love, respect, bravery, honesty, and humility are operating simultaneously. Truth is not merely factual accuracy, it is the quality of a life lived in full alignment with the sacred principles. The Dreamcatcher. Asibikaashi, the Spider Woman, and the complete tradition. The Dreamcatcher is the most globally distributed and most widely misunderstood indigenous sacred object in the world. Its specific origin, its specific traditional form, and its specific sacred meaning belong to the Ojibwe Anishinaabe tradition, a fact that has been obscured by decades of commercial reproduction and pan-Indian generalization. The Asibikaashi story, complete. Spider Woman was the spiritual protector of the Ojibwe people, the sacred being who watched over the children. As the Anishinaabe spread westward across the Great Lakes region over generations, Asibikaashi could no longer reach all the children as she once could. So the grandmothers and mothers took up her work themselves, weaving web-like hoops with sinew or thread, decorated with beads and feathers hung above the cradleboards of infants. These webs were Asibikaashi's work made physical, the spider's protective web, extended to the children the Spider Woman could no longer reach herself. The Dreamcatcher, complete traditional understanding and practice. The traditional form, a traditional Ojibwe Dreamcatcher, used a willow hoop, sinew, or natural fiber woven in a specific web pattern with a small hole at the center, and specific decorations that carried specific sacred meaning. The sacred mechanism, the web catches bad dreams in its pattern during the night. When the rise of the day comes, the sun's light dissolves the bad dreams caught in the web. They evaporate with the night. The good dreams, knowing the web's pattern, find the central hole and slide down the feathers to the sleeping person below. This is not a metaphor. In traditional Ojibwe understanding, dreams carry genuine sacred content and genuine spiritual risks, and protection against harmful dream content is a serious sacred practice. The difference that matters, a traditionally made dream catcher, willow hoop, natural fiber, beads and feathers selected for specific sacred meaning, made with specific prayers and specific intention, is a genuine sacred protective object. A mass-produced plastic and neon string dream catcher sold at a tourist shop carries no such intention and no such protection. The material, the process and the prayer are all part of what makes the object what it is. The Pan-Indian spread, in the 1960s to 70s, Ojibwe and Lakota activists working together in the Pan-Indian movement shared the dream catcher as a symbol of indigenous unity and identity. The Lakota adopted the tradition with their own interpretation, the Iktomi web, and the combined Ojibwe-Lakota sharing spread the object across indigenous North America as a Pan-Indian symbol before it spread globally through commercialization. The Lakota version, the Lakota sacred spider, is Iktomi, the trickster. Iktomi's web is used in Lakota tradition differently than Asibikaashi's web in Ojibwe tradition. Iktomi's web can catch both good and bad, and the dreamer must exercise wisdom to know which teachings to accept and which to reject. The Lakota version is more morally complex. The web is not purely protective, but also a teacher of discernment. What other tribes did not use, as the pasted context correctly notes, Navajo and Hopi used different protective technologies. Cherokee used dream blowers and protective charms, not web hoops. The assumption that the dream catcher is universal to all Native American peoples is incorrect. The Midewiwin, the Grand Medicine Society, step by step. The Midewiwin is the most important ceremonial and healing institution of the Ojibwe tradition, a multi-level sacred society responsible for maintaining the Ojibwe people's health, their sacred knowledge, and their relationship with the Creator. The Midewiwin is not a church or a medicine club. It is the primary vehicle through which the most sacred Ojibwe knowledge has been transmitted and maintained across generations. The Midewiwin, structure and sacred function. The 4 degrees, Midewiwin membership is organized into 4 degrees, each representing a deeper level of sacred knowledge and a more demanding set of ceremonial and personal obligations. Advancement through the degrees requires both demonstrated conduct and the sponsorship of senior members. The Mide scrolls. The Midewiwin maintains Birchbark scrolls on which specific sacred knowledge is encoded in pictographic form, one of the most sophisticated indigenous knowledge preservation systems in North America. The scrolls encode the specific ceremonies, the sacred songs, the medicines, and the cosmological knowledge maintained by the Midewiwin across generations. Some scrolls are thousands of years old. The sacred shell, the sacred white shell, is the primary sacred object of the Midewiwin, the specific medium through which the healing power of the ceremony is transmitted. During initiation, the medicine bag of the candidate is shot with the Miji shell by the presiding Mide practitioners. The shell's entry into the candidate symbolizes the reception of sacred healing power. Healing, the primary practical function of the Midewiwin, is healing. The society maintains the most comprehensive plant medicine knowledge in the Ojibwe tradition, conducts healing ceremonies for community members, and provides the specific sacred framework within which the most serious illnesses are addressed. Midewiwin initiation ceremony, step by step. Preparation, the candidate for initiation prepares through fasting, specific purification, and the gathering of specific offerings for the ceremony. A sponsor guides the preparation and serves as the candidate's ceremonial guide. Step 1, the sweat lodge. The ceremony begins with a sweat lodge, the physical and spiritual purification that prepares the candidate's body and spirit for the reception of the sacred power. Step 2. The procession. The candidate processes to the Mide Lodge. The procession organized by the senior Mide practitioners in specific order. Step 3. The teaching. The senior Mide practitioners deliver the teachings appropriate to the degree of initiation. The specific sacred knowledge, the specific medicines, the specific songs that belong to this level of membership. The teachings are delivered in the traditional manner, oral transmission, demonstrated practice, not written instruction. Step 4. The shooting. The most distinctive element of Midewiwin initiation. The presiding practitioners shoot the candidate with a Miji shell from their medicine bags. The candidate falls and is then revived. The shell is understood as having entered the candidate's body, the physical vehicle of the sacred power they are receiving. Step 5. The receipt of the medicine bag. The newly initiated member receives their own medicine bag, the specific sacred container of their Mide membership, to be maintained, added to over the years, and eventually buried with them at death. Step 6. The feast. The ceremony closes with a community feast, the collective sharing of food as the expression of the renewed community relationship that the initiation creates. The halagricity lends dream protection in the sacred web. The spider cannot reach all the children anymore. The Anishinaabe have spread too far. So the grandmothers weave the web above the cradleboard, continuing Asibikaashi's work with their own hands. The web catches what needs to be caught. The good dream finds the hole and slides down the feather. The child sleeps protected. This is the most practical available expression of what the Haligric practitioner is doing when they maintain the living altar, continuing the sacred being's work with human hands, in the specific location and the specific relationship that the sacred being can no longer reach directly. Grand Rising. The Ojibwe tradition offers halagricity two gifts of specific practical and philosophical relevance. The dream catcher, as the most widely distributed available model of the sacred object, as both protection technology and relational acknowledgement. And the seven grandfather teachings, as one of the most complete and most accessible available ancient ethical frameworks for the specific qualities the Haligric practitioner is developing through the practice. The seven grandfathers and the tetralty. The seven grandfather teachings map directly onto the Haligric tetralty. Wisdom and truth operate in the thinking dimension. Honesty and bravery operate in the speaking dimension. Respect operates in the doing dimension. Love operates in the feeling dimension. And humility operates in the understanding of what all four dimensions are oriented toward, the Creator's original intention for the practitioner's specific life. The tradition that produced these seven teachings also produced the dream catcher. The same intelligence that articulated the most sophisticated indigenous ethical framework also wove the web of protection above the sleeping child. Grand Rising. Midewiwin, the good life, the good way of living. Seven teachings, one purpose. To walk in good relationship with all your relations. Ojibwe Anishinaabe sacred teaching on the purpose of the seven grandfathers. Asibikaashi wove the first web. Then the grandmothers wove them above the cradleboards. Then the 1960s activists carried the tradition across the continent as a symbol of indigenous unity. Now they hang in tourist shops on 6 continents. The web is still there in every version. The question is not whether the web is real, it is whether the practitioner who makes it brings the same sacred intention the grandmothers brought. Midewiwin, Grand Rising. Personal Reading Series Halagricity, or IQ Productions, or June 2026.